Hey guys, tonight we're curling up with a slow-burning tale of favoritism, fashion drama, and the kind of sibling resentment that turns into an international incident. We're diving into the story of Joseph, the dreamer, the robe-wearer, the boy who somehow managed to annoy 11 older brothers so deeply that they threw him in a pit and sold him like a pair of second-hand sandals. Yeah, that guy. Right now, picture it. The hills of Canaan, early morning haze lifting off the fields, and one teenage boy strutting across the pasture in a coat that would make a Broadway costume designer weep with joy. That coat isn't just colorful. It's a problem. It billows, it shimmers, it basically screams, I am the favorite. And in a family with 12 sons and one very expressive set of grudges, that's a risky move. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're 17 and your coat has sleeves. That detail matters. Because in ancient textiles, sleeves meant status. Laborers wore sleeveless tunics for practicality. Sleeves were for people who weren't expected to haul goats around all day. And you? You're not hauling goats. You're Joseph, 11th of 12 sons, son of Jacob, grandson of Isaac, great-grandson of Abraham. But more importantly, favorite of your father, Rachel's golden boy, and current wearer of the world's most controversial outerwear. It's not just a robe, it's a billboard, a walking declaration that you, and not your burly older brothers, are daddy's top pick, and they hate it. Historians still argue whether the coat of many colors was truly multicolored or just finely woven. Some translations suggest a long tunic, others say ornamented. What's clear is this: whatever Joseph was wearing, it was extra. Enough to turn every head in camp, and enough to make his brothers want to toss him headfirst into the nearest well. You walk through the camp, your coat catching the light. Your brothers look up from their work, mending nets, scraping hides, hauling water, and their eyes narrow. You flash a grin, maybe a little too smug. You don't mean to be annoying, but you are. And it doesn't help that Jacob never learned the art of subtlety. He dotes, he praises. He tells everyone who will listen that you're the son of his old age, the one born to his favorite wife. And yes, he gives you assignments that conveniently keep you out of hard labor. You're more field reporter than shepherd, a management type. Which means you're often sent out to check on your brothers, and then come back with helpful little updates like, Simeon was slacking, or Dan lost a sheep, which, shockingly, doesn't make you popular. You're not entirely sure why they get so mad. You're just observant, efficient, honest. But that robe, it doesn't just mark you as different, it marks you as better. At least, that's how they see it. You stretch out under a fig tree while the older brothers work. You watch the sky change color. You daydream. And lately, your dreams have been wild, big, symbolic, and weirdly self-centered. Which brings us to your first mistake. You decide to share those dreams. Because what better way to win over a room full of jealous brothers than to casually tell them, over breakfast, hey, so I had this dream where we were binding sheaves in the field, and suddenly my sheaf stood upright, and your sheaves bowed down to mine. You smile, waiting for applause. They stare at you. Are you saying, Reuben mutters, that you are going to rule over us? You shrug. I mean, it was just a dream. But the smile, the robe, the reporting, it all adds up, and they are not impressed. You lie awake that night staring at the ceiling of the tent, wondering why everyone's so grumpy. You're not trying to be arrogant, you're just narrating your experience. And the dreams keep coming. Next one? Even weirder. This time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bow down to you. You wake up confused and buzzing. It's gotta mean something. It's got symbolism. You're pretty sure your dreams are divine. So of course you tell the whole family, even Dad. And this time, even he raises an eyebrow. "Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow before you?" he asks, voice careful. You pause. "Just sharing," you say. But the damage is done. Your brothers stew in silence. Their glares last a little longer. Their replies get shorter. The air in the family tent feels like someone just burned dinner and nobody wants to admit it. And you're just beginning to sense that maybe you should have kept those dreams to yourself. The next morning, your robe is freshly brushed, your curls are doing something unplanned but majestic, and you've once again been excused from early morning sheep duty. Your brothers are already out in the fields, grumbling, slinging feed, and plotting your demise over grain sacks and goat noises. Meanwhile, you're enjoying figs. That's your life. You stretch luxuriously. The air smells like sun-warmed dust and donkey. Your father, Jacob, calls you over with the kind of affection that only makes your brothers more resentful from a distance. He gives you an errand. Go check on your brothers in Shechem. See how they're doing and bring me word. Which, translated into brother speak, means go spy on us and file a report. But you say yes, because hey, walking in your robe beats sheep wrangling any day. So you set off. The journey starts quiet. Rolling hills, thin trails of smoke in the distance, birds doing important bird things. You pass fig trees, wave to a man carting fish, and hum to yourself. The sun's high by the time you reach Shechem. But your brothers? Nowhere to be found. They've moved on. Of course they have. A man notices your confused expression and asks what you're looking for. You tell him. He shrugs and points toward Dothan. I heard them say they were going there. It's a small moment, easy to miss, but scholars point to it with a kind of narrative reverence. A stranger, unnamed, redirecting you on the path that changes everything. Historians still argue whether this was divine setup or literary device. Was the man an angel in disguise, or just a guy who happened to overhear a shepherd complaint? Either way, your story shifts. You head for Dothan. Meanwhile, your brothers see you coming. You don't see them yet. You're still navigating the uneven hills, humming your dream tune, probably planning to share a new metaphor about wheat, stars, and everyone loving you. But up ahead, they've spotted that unmistakable splash of technicolor. And they are done. Saw him from far off, one of them mutters. Here comes the dreamer. Another spits in the dirt. Let's kill him. It's said almost casually, like a suggestion about lunch, and it lands harder because it isn't shouted, it's just said. That's how resentment works. It simmers. It normalizes, and eventually it becomes logistics. Reuben, the oldest, tries to soften the plan. Let's not kill him, just throw him in a pit. It's unclear whether he's being merciful or just strategic. Historians debate whether Reuben actually wanted to save you or was just trying to control the narrative so he could later look heroic. But either way, it works. They wait. You arrive. Smiling, waving, already mid-sentence, and then, hands grab. Your robe's yanked off, with the kind of force that says, finally. You barely get out a hey, what before you're shoved. The pit isn't bottomless, it's just deep enough to hurt. Dry, dark, echoey, smells faintly of disappointment and lizard. You blink up at the rim where your brothers are already arguing. Some want to leave you there, some still vote for murder. Reuben is making vague protest noises. And then Judah speaks. There's no profit in killing him. What if we sold him? They all go quiet. It's not a bad idea as far as morally ambiguous sibling solutions go. And wouldn't you know it, here comes a caravan. Ishmaelites trailing camels and trade goods heading toward Egypt. Leather bags, copper trinkets, and a wagon full of everything you don't want to be part of. A deal is struck. Silver coins jingle, and you're pulled from the pit. Not hugged, not forgiven, just sold. Your wrists are tied. Your brothers don't look you in the eye. You try to speak, but your mouth feels stuffed with panic. And then the camels move, and your world goes sideways. You glance back once, but they're already gone. Already moving on to the next problem, the next lie, the next version of events. They keep your robe. That part stings more than you expect. It's not just cloth, it's identity. And they're holding it now, planning something with it. Meanwhile, you are bouncing in the back of a caravan, sand in your teeth, prayers jumbled, dreams cracking. And still, part of you thinks, this has to be a mistake. You're supposed to be blessed. You're supposed to rise. You're the dreamer, right? The stars bowed down. The sheaves stood up. But right now, you're just trying not to throw up from the camel sway. Back home, the brothers dip your robe in goat's blood. They shred it a little, smear it just right, then bring it to Jacob. We found this, they say. Is it your son's? Jacob holds it like a broken heart, and he weeps. He doesn't ask questions, doesn't demand details. He just tears his own robe and sinks into grief like it's a new home. The favorite son is gone, the dreamer has fallen, and no one sees the twist coming. Not yet. Not for years. The caravan rolls south toward Egypt, slow and swaying, sun-struck and monotonous. You're tied to a pack mule by a length of rough rope that scratches your wrists raw. Around you, traders talk in a language you only half understand, their voices bouncing like pebbles in a jug. The path is dusty, your throat is dry, and every bump reminds you, this is not a dream. This is exile. At night, they let you sleep near the fire, barely. You curl up between sacks of myrrh and dried figs, the ground unkind, the sky too large. Somewhere a camel moans like it's auditioning for a tragedy. You miss your bed, your brothers, even Reuben, who once sneezed in your face during a blessing. You do not miss the pit or the look Judah gave you before they handed you over, but you think about that robe, your robe, the one they shredded and dipped in goat blood like amateur costume designers. You picture your father holding it, the way he used to hold you, tight, like you were breakable and sacred all at once. Does he know? Does he believe it? You hope not. And you hope so, at the same time. Because if he believes you're dead, he'll grieve. But maybe he'll stop worrying. If he doesn't believe it, he'll search forever. There's no good answer. Egypt appears like a mirage that decides to stick around. Stone towers, obelisks, the Nile like a ribbon laid carefully between two gods. You stare at the size of it all. The color, the noise, the sheer number of linen skirts and eyeliner. Everything smells like spice and sweat and fish. It's overwhelming. And you're sold again. This time to Potiphar, captain of the guard. A military man with sharp sandals and sharper cheekbones. He doesn't smile, but he pays. And just like that, you go from Hebrew caravan cargo to Egyptian property. Congratulations, new city, new language, new chains. Potiphar's house is enormous. Marble floors, papyrus blinds, people bustling like ants with excellent posture. You're given a servant's tunic, shorter, rougher, humble. Your coat of many colors is probably lining a goat pen by now. Still, you work. Because what else can you do? You carry jars, you pour water, you sweep dust from already clean surfaces while trying not to trip over dogs that clearly outrank you. And over time, you rise. Potiphar notices, because you're good at this. You listen, you remember things. You don't drop plates or insult the cook or accidentally make eye contact with the high priest's wife. You're careful, efficient, strange, but useful. Mainstream historical fact. Household servants in wealthy Egyptian homes could hold surprisingly high levels of responsibility. Some even managed finances and estates. And Joseph? He seems to get there fast. Before long, you're running the place. Potiphar trusts you so completely, he only worries about what's for dinner. You keep the ledgers, the storehouses, the wine inventory. You even get new clothes. Simple, yes, but better than rope and bruises. And for a while, things settle. Until she arrives. Potiphar's wife. Nameless in the text, but present, observant, bored. And you? Well, you've grown up. You're handsome, uncomfortably so. and your work ethic makes you even more attractive. You're like an ancient Near Eastern intern who suddenly looks like he should be sculpted into a vase. She notices. At first it's subtle, questions about your background, requests for help in places where no help is needed. Then the looks, then the proposition. She doesn't whisper it, she just says it. Lie with me. And you freeze, because this isn't a crush. This is a crisis. You say no, not just because it's morally complicated, but because it's Potiphar's wife, and because deep down you're still that robe-wearing dreamer who believes God might still have something for you beyond this marble hallway. She does not take rejection well. She persists. Daily. This is not the kind of temptation you can joke about. There's no HR in Potiphar's house. No employee handbook. Just a hallway where one wrong decision leads to the end of everything you've built. So you avoid her. You reroute your chores, you clean rooms twice to stay busy, and then one day she traps you. Everyone else is out. The air is thick with heat and silence. You're alone in the house, straightening scrolls when she steps in front of you and reaches for your robe. Not again. You run. But she gets a handful of cloth. And when the house fills again, she screams. Says you came after her. Says she has proof, your garment, conveniently left behind. Potiphar returns, hears the story, sees the robe, doesn't ask you, doesn't need to. You're sent to prison, just like that. No trial, no explanation, just shackles and stairs and stone. Down you go. Dreams crushed again. Not by brothers this time, but by power, accusation, and one more cursed robe. Historians still argue whether Potiphar truly believed his wife. Some think he knew Joseph was innocent, but had to act to save face. Others say Potiphar's anger was more about betrayal than proof. But either way, Joseph ends up where no one wants to be, in a cell, with his hope shelved, and his dreams once again out of reach. The prison is dark in the way old cellars are dark. Thick, damp, and completely uninterested in your personal dreams or fashion history. You sit on a stone bench that pretends to be a bed, lean your back against a wall that's been collecting stories since the last dynasty, and try to remember how you got here. Your back still itches from the linen tunic being yanked off. That's 3 garments now. Your coat of many colors, your servant's tunic, and your dignity, all removed by other people, all in moments when your life took a nosedive. It's a theme, but you're not dead, and that counts for something. You learn the rhythm of the prison quickly. There's a lot of sitting, a lot of silence, broken only by coughing, the clink of metal, or a rat dragging something suspicious across the floor. The food arrives in a wooden dish. It tastes like defeat. But even here, you rise, because you're Joseph. And whether you're managing a palace or sweeping a cell block, you notice things. You organize. You remember who likes their lentils crushed and who gets twitchy if their straw mat is moved. And the warden? He notices. Within weeks, you're running the prison from the inside. Mainstream historical fact. Egyptian prisons in this period were often attached to royal estates or military complexes. High-ranking prisoners, like the ones Joseph ends up with, would have had some privileges, depending on their crimes and connections. So, Joseph running the daily operations? Plausible, especially given how good he is at turning bad situations into resumes, which is why you're there when the new guys arrive. 2 of Pharaoh's servants, high-ranking, fancy, nervous, the chief cupbearer, and the chief baker. They don't say what they did. You don't ask. But it must have been something serious to land them here. You give them mats, show them the food schedule, tell them which wall leaks when it rains. They nod, grateful, quiet, until the dreams start. One morning, both men look wrecked, pale, sweaty, pacing like goats in a thunderstorm. You ask, "What's wrong?" They glance at each other, then back at you. "We had dreams," says the cupbearer. "Strange ones, and no one's here to interpret." "And you?" You pause. Because you know dreams. They got you here, after all. You nod slowly. "Interpretations belong to God. Tell me what you saw." The cupbearer goes first. In my dream, he says, there was a vine with 3 branches. It budded, blossomed, and produced grapes. I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and handed it to him. You think, then speak. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. You'll hand him his cup again. The man exhales like you've just handed him his freedom. And the baker? He steps forward, hopeful. In my dream, I had 3 baskets on my head. The top one had all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but birds were eating them. You don't want to answer. You really don't. But you do. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head too. Pause. Off your body. You'll be executed, and birds will feast. There's a silence after that. Not dramatic, just heavy. The kind of silence that tells you you've spoken something true that nobody wanted to hear. The next 3 days, crawl. And then, right on schedule, everything happens exactly as you said. Cupbearer restored. Baker hanged. You sit in your cell that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of gift works that accurately and still doesn't get you out of prison. But before the cupbearer leaves, you pull him aside. Please, you say, when you're restored, remember me. Mention me to Pharaoh. I was taken from my homeland. I've done nothing to deserve prison. He nods, grips your arm. I won't forget. And then he forgets. 2 years. That's how long you stay in that cell after he walks out. 730 days of repeating the same routines. The same silence. The same food that somehow always tastes like damp barley. 2 years of listening to your own heartbeat and trying not to lose the thread of who you are. You dream sometimes, but you don't tell anyone. You've learned. Some dreams need space, need silence, need waiting. Historians note that this delay is one of the longest gaps in Joseph's narrative. From the moment the cupbearer leaves to the moment Pharaoh dreams, it's blank. 2 years of no voice from God, no progress, just quiet faithfulness. And maybe that's the miracle. Not the dreams, but the waiting. Not the robes, but the resilience. Because anyone can have a vision when the stars bow down, but only a few can hold on when nothing's bowing at all. You curl on your mat, back to the wall, the scent of straw and memory thick in your nose, still dreaming, still waiting. And somewhere in the palace above, a king starts to toss in his sleep. Pharaoh doesn't sleep well. Not tonight. Not with those dreams. He wakes up sweaty, breath caught in his throat, royal linen sheets tangled like seaweed. Servants rush in to mop his brow, adjust the drapes, and whisper calming nonsense, but nothing helps. He waves them off, because the dreams, plural, are loud. The first one, 7 cows. Fat, healthy, the kind you'd paint on a mural to impress visiting dignitaries. They come out of the Nile, sleek and content. Then 7 other cows, gaunt, ghostly, like famine with hooves. And those skinny cows, they eat the fat ones. Pharaoh wakes up, then falls asleep again. Another dream, this time ears of grain. 7 full and good, then 7 thin and scorched. And again, the thin devour the full. He wakes up a second time, now very awake, very rattled, and very ready to cancel breakfast. He summons the wise men, the magicians, the spiritual consultants in various expensive beards. They all shrug. Some mumble things about harvest patterns or divine warnings, but Pharaoh's not buying it. He paces, robes billowing like storm clouds, muttering, I need answers, not metaphors. And then, the cupbearer, yes, that cupbearer remembers, blinks. Oh, wait, there was this guy in prison. Cue dramatic turn. Pharaoh snaps his fingers, bring him. And you? You're still in the dungeon, braiding straw out of boredom, mentally ranking Egyptian lentils from passable to emotional damage. And suddenly, footsteps, keys, shouting. A guard appears. You. Clean up. Pharaoh wants you. Just like that. The beard comes off, you're given clean clothes, new sandals, probably your first bath in a decade. You barely recognize yourself in the polished copper mirror. And then you stand before Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the known world, who has, at this moment, No idea you were once an oversharing teenager with dream issues and a robe too fancy for goat duty. He looks at you. I had dreams. No one can explain them, but I hear you can. You shake your head. Gutsy move. But then, not I. God will give Pharaoh an answer. Pharaoh raises one eyebrow, then tells you everything. Cows, grain, hunger, devouring. You listen, you nod, and then calmly you respond, the dreams mean the same thing. God is warning Pharaoh. 7 years of abundance are coming, followed by 7 years of famine. You pause. It will be severe. Pharaoh leans forward. You continue. Store grain. Save during the good years. Appoint someone wise to oversee it. He leans back, stroking his chin. Then he does something no one expects. He picks you. Right there. Right then. You, former prisoner, Hebrew, dream interpreter, are now second in command over Egypt. Only Pharaoh outranks you. You blink, nod, try not to look stunned. A gold chain is placed around your neck. A signet ring pressed into your palm. Robes again, fine linen this time. Regal, respectable, probably dry clean only. Historians love this moment. It's one of the fastest and most dramatic reversals of fortune in ancient literature. Prisoner to prime minister in a single conversation. French scholars have noted the political implications. Was Pharaoh looking to install someone he could control? Was this divine destiny disguised as bureaucracy? Whatever the case, you now have a chariot and a new Egyptian name, Zaphanath-Paneah. It sounds like something you'd order with flatbread, but you wear it well. You're given a wife, Asenath, daughter of a priest, and suddenly you're a family man. A foreigner in a foreign palace, making executive grain decisions while trying not to miss your old goats. And the land, it prospers. For 7 years, crops grow like they're showing off. You oversee warehouses, you organize regions, you nod wisely while people bow. And then, the famine hits, the Nile retreats, fields dry, grain vanishes. But you're ready. Egypt is fed, foreigners arrive, hungry, desperate, and among them, your brothers. You spot them the moment they step into the granary, older now, dusty, lean, not looking for you, because why would they? They think you're dead, or disappeared, or somewhere in the background of their conscience, gnawing like guilt. You stay silent, for now, because this isn't revenge, this is revelation, and you want to see what dreams look like when they finally wake up. They don't recognize you, of course they don't. You're taller, shaved, eyelinered, draped in Egyptian linen and flanked by guards. You're speaking Egyptian through an interpreter, even though you understand every word they whisper behind cupped hands. And they're just 11 tired brothers. Well, 10 for now. Benjamin isn't with them. They bow, exactly like in your dream. You pause a moment longer than you need to, because the symmetry is impossible to ignore. The sheaves, the stars, the posture. But this isn't the time for reunions. So you do something strange. You act like you don't know them, which technically is true, because the last time you saw these men, they were hoisting you out of a pit and handing you over to strangers. You keep your voice cold. Where are you from? They answer, Canaan. We've come to buy food. You nod slowly, then accuse them of being spies. Why? Honestly, you're not even sure. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe it's a test. Maybe it's your turn to hold the upper hand and see what they do under pressure. They protest. Say they're all sons of one man. Say they're honest, which is rich. Say they have a younger brother still at home. And you jump on that. You won't leave until he comes here. They panic. You imprison them for 3 days. It's dramatic, a little extra. But you need time to think. On the 3rd day, you bring them out. Tell them they can go, but one of them must stay behind. As collateral, until Benjamin arrives. You pick Simeon. He doesn't look thrilled. You return their silver secretly, slipping it back into their sacks. Not because you want to confuse them, though that's a perk, but because this is all part of something bigger. Something unfolding. They leave Egypt with grain, nervous glances, and the uneasy feeling that someone or something is watching them. Back in Canaan, they tell Jacob everything. He doesn't take it well. Losing Joseph was enough. Now Simeon is in an Egyptian prison, and Benjamin, his last link to Rachel, is being requested. Hard no. Time passes. Grain runs low. Again, and hunger has a way of turning hard no into maybe. Judah steps up, says he'll be responsible, says if they don't go, they all die anyway. Jacob relents. They pack gifts, double the silver, and Benjamin, back to Egypt. You see him the moment they arrive. He's grown. Looks like your mother. And something in you cracks, but you don't show it. Instead, you throw a feast, invite them to your home. They're terrified, of course. They think it's a trap, that you'll accuse them of stealing silver, that you'll enslave them. You seat them in birth order, just for fun. They exchange confused glances. You send them food, 5 times more for Benjamin. They eat nervously, like men unsure whether they're being welcomed or fattened for something worse. You watch, you listen, and then you test them again. You send them off with full sacks, silver restored, and one new twist. Your special silver cup, you plant it in Benjamin's bag. Then send your steward after them. They're caught, dragged back, accused, and now the real test begins. Will they abandon him the way they abandoned you? Judah steps forward, offers himself instead, says Benjamin must go home, so their father won't survive another heartbreak, and something in you breaks fully. The facade drops. You send the servants out. You weep. You sob so loudly that the whole household hears it. And then, I am Joseph. They freeze, like statues mid-earthquake. I am your brother, the one you sold. You wait. And then, don't be afraid. You step closer. God sent me ahead of you to save lives. You tell them it wasn't really them. Not in the ultimate sense. That everything, the pit, the caravan, the prison, was part of something larger. That you've been used not for punishment, but for provision. They're still stunned, but you hug them, kiss them, cry on their shoulders. Even Benjamin, who probably still doesn't understand why he got 5 servings of lentils. The dream has come true, but not the way you imagined. It wasn't about power. It was about purpose. And now, you send for your father. You want to see him again. To let him know the dreamer is still alive. And the dreams were never just symbols. They were seeds, now blooming. The journey back to Canaan is faster this time because urgency walks quicker than hunger. Your brothers leave Egypt with wagons, donkeys, and sacks stuffed with provisions. But more than that, they carry something heavier, the truth. They don't know how to say it. How do you tell your father that the son he mourned for years isn't just alive, but ruling Egypt? That his robe wasn't soaked in death, but in providence? They practice the speech as they go, rehearsing, tripping over verbs, arguing about whose idea it was to sell you. Eventually they reach Jacob, and the words come out all wrong. He stares, he doesn't blink, he doesn't breathe, because you don't unloose a son. Not usually. They say your name again, Joseph. Still alive, still remembering, still asking for him. And something inside Jacob stirs. At first he doesn't believe it. Then he sees the wagons, the gifts, the bread, and it clicks. He gasps, eyes wide with 1,000 buried emotions suddenly unburied. Then, he says one sentence, I must go see him before I die. And so begins a journey not just of miles, but of memory. The family packs, not just the brothers, everyone, servants, livestock, scrolls, all headed to Egypt, to Goshen, to you. They stop in Beersheba, your father's old stomping grounds. There, Jacob offers sacrifices. He prays, he listens, and in the quiet, God speaks. Don't be afraid to go to Egypt. I'll go with you. And Joseph will close your eyes. That last part means everything. It's the promise that you'll be there when he dies, but also that he'll see you live. And when they arrive, you don't wait for ceremony. You run to him, like a child, like a son. And you fall on his neck and weep for a very long time. It's the kind of reunion that makes time itself pause. The dreamer and the dream giver back together. He touches your face like he can't quite believe it. You both speak at once, then not at all. And it's enough. You introduce him to Pharaoh, who bows slightly, because even kings know grief and age deserve respect. You settle the family in Goshen. It's good land, good soil, good space for rebuilding. And while your father lives there, everything feels like bonus time. He gets 17 years with you. The same number he had before you were lost. Symmetry, again, as if life remembered to balance itself. During that time, the famine eases. Egypt recovers. And you become the most powerful Hebrew in history up to that point. But you still dream. You still remember. And when the time comes, when your father's health fails, you're there. He blesses your sons. He blesses your brothers. He speaks prophecy through shaking hands and tear-bright eyes. Then he gathers his feet into the bed, and he dies. You fulfill his wish. Carry his body back to Canaan. Bury him with Abraham and Isaac. The cave at Machpelah, full of promise and bone. It's a quiet moment, not dramatic, but it matters, because roots matter. Even for dreamers. When you return to Egypt, your brothers pull you aside. They're nervous. They think, now that Jacob's gone, you'll finally punish them. They remember the pit, the sale, the lies. They bow again and say, please forgive us. And you weep. Don't be afraid, you say. You meant it for harm, but God meant it for good. It's the sentence that ties the whole story together. The sentence that lets the pit, the palace, and the prison all breathe the same air. Historians call it one of the most theologically rich moments in Genesis. Not because it's complex, but because it's clear. This was never about you versus them. It was always about grace, and how sometimes grace comes with a robe you didn't choose, a journey you didn't expect, and dreams that take their sweet time. Time passes. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't slow down for legacy or love. It just moves, steady and quiet. And soon, you're older than your father ever was when you disappeared. Your beard grays, your sons grow up. Egypt changes its walls and rulers like robes. And still, you remain. Joseph of Egypt, the dreamer turned administrator, the Hebrew turned hero. But it's not over. Not yet. Because before your father died, he made you promise something. Not about inheritance or authority, but about bones. He made you swear that when the time came, you wouldn't bury him in Egypt, that you'd take him home, back to Canaan, back to Abraham's tomb. So you did, and now? You carry that same promise in your pocket, because one day, your bones will need to move too. But for now, you live, you lead. You teach your children to hold on to their story, even when the language of their neighbors doesn't match. You walk the edge of two worlds. Hebrew in identity, Egyptian in influence. It's a balancing act. You still hold court, you still advise, but you also watch. Watch Egypt shift. Watch new pharaohs rise, ones who squint at your name and forget the famine, forget the 7 years, forget the foreigner who saved them. You know what's coming, not specifics, not dates, but tides. You can feel the pressure building beneath the prosperity. There's a heaviness in the streets now. Whispers of policy changes, suspicion, restrictions. You see it in the faces of your grandchildren, who start to speak Egyptian before Hebrew, who ask why they look different from their friends. And you hold both truths. You bless them in both languages. And then one morning, you don't wake up. It's peaceful, not dramatic. Just sleep that keeps going. Your family gathers. They weep. They whisper the stories you told, the dreams, the pit, the rise, and they remember what you asked. Don't leave me here. Take my bones with you when you go. They nod, they promise, and they wait. Because Exodus doesn't happen yet. Not for a while, but when it does, when Moses leads the people out through plagues and parted seas, your bones will go with them, wrapped, carried, honored. Because some promises stretch across centuries. Mainstream scholars often point out that Joseph's story ends not with victory but with waiting. His burial doesn't happen until generations later. But his words, they echo. God will come to your aid, and when he does, take me with you. It's a quiet kind of hope. A portable kind, a reminder that even when the dream seems buried, it moves, and you're remembered. Not just for your coat, not just for your management skills or good cheekbones or surprisingly graceful crisis handling, but for your dreams and how you held on to them, even in the pit, even in the prison, even when they made people hate you, you believed. Not always with clarity, not always without fear, but enough. And that was the thread, the through line, the thing that turned a robe into a roadmap, a dream into destiny, and a boy into a blessing. But let's slow down, step back, and unspool the thread that's been running underneath everything so far. Because at its core, this story, this slow-burning, dream-drenched, robe-ripping story, is not just about one boy rising to power. It's about something deeper, something messier. It's about jealousy, and how it warps the air in a room before anyone says a word. Remember those early mornings? The sheep pastures? The fire pits where your brothers warmed their hands and muttered about favoritism? They're villains. They were human. And humans? We notice when love is lopsided. Your father Jacob was not subtle. He lavished affection on you like you were the only one holding his legacy. And your brothers, men of sweat and scars and calloused hands, watched it all. They saw the robe, heard the praise. And then, those dreams. Dreams that didn't just suggest you might be important. Dreams that said they would bow. It's not the dreams themselves that pushed them. It's what they seemed to confirm. That maybe Jacob was right to favor you. That maybe they were secondary. That maybe the story wasn't about them. Jealousy doesn't always explode. Sometimes it creeps. Historians still argue whether ancient sibling rivalry in patriarchal families was common, or if Genesis exaggerates for dramatic effect. But culturally, inheritance was everything. The firstborn was supposed to matter most, and you weren't firstborn. Not even close. But you were chosen. And that's where the tension starts. You weren't wrong to dream. You weren't wrong to share. But timing? Tone? Those could have used some work. Because a dream, if delivered like a declaration, can feel like a threat. And that's what your brothers heard. They didn't see the symbols. They saw your smirk, and they cracked. It happens all the time, doesn't it? Someone shines, and instead of celebrating, others step back, squint, question. Then, sometimes sabotage. It's not just ancient, it's human, it's us. But here's the strange twist. Their sabotage fulfilled the dream. The pit sent you to the palace. The betrayal set the prophecy in motion. Even the lies were leveraged into legacy. And that's the part they never saw coming. You think about this often now, sitting in your Egyptian office, wearing another robe, a less offensive one maybe, but still symbolic. You see people walk past your doors, merchants, soldiers, scribes, and every now and then you spot a face that reminds you of a brother, not just your own, someone who looked at someone else's light and forgot they had their own. You know what that's like too. Even after everything, you've had moments, yes, even you, where you've looked up at the ceiling and thought, why this path? Why dreams that hurt before they helped? Why visions that took so long? And the answer isn't loud. It's not even satisfying. But it's honest. Because growth isn't pretty. It's pit-shaped, prison-shaped, stretched across years and disappointments and false accusations. And somehow it's also holy. You lean back in your chair and look out the window. The Nile sparkles like someone spilled heaven. Somewhere out there, another dreamer is scribbling their first vision on the inside of a tent flap, trying to decide if it's safe to share. You want to tell them, yes, but be ready, because some people will hear your dream and think you're arrogant. Some will try to shrink it. Some will sell you for it. But if it's true, if it's really true, it will hold, it will unfold. And one day even your enemies may bow to it, not in defeat, but in awe, because that's what truth does. It rises, even from a pit. You still dream sometimes, not the vivid prophetic kind with bowing sheaves and celestial bodies lining up like obedient chess pieces. No, these dreams are quieter, stranger, less symbolic, and more emotional. Sometimes you're back in the pit, but it's not your brothers you see above you, it's yourself. Older, watching, waiting. Other nights, you're running, chased by shadows that wear your old robe. You wake up breathless. Reach for the nearest scroll or pottery shard just to remind yourself, you're not in Canaan anymore. You're not in prison. You're not 17. You're here. And here is complex. Because even with your title, your chariot, your closets full of pressed linen and gold, you're still straddling two worlds. Egypt calls you Zaphanath Paneah. Your children call you Abba. And you still remember what your father called you in that soft, half-proud, half-worried voice. My son, the dreamer. It's odd, isn't it? How the dreams that once got you thrown in a pit are now the very reason Egypt thrives. You used to wake up and tell your family what you saw in the night sky. Now you wake up and tell entire regions how to survive a drought. That shift didn't happen overnight. It happened in layers, quiet ones. 7 years of planning, of building granaries, coordinating transport routes, trading grain for livestock, then land, then loyalty. Pharaoh called you wise. Your advisors called you indispensable, but you still called it stewardship, because that's what it felt like. Not rule, not revenge, just a strange fulfillment, like living inside your own dream, but sideways. And then the brothers returned, again, still humble, still hungry. This time not just for food, but for restoration. They stayed, settled, blended into Goshen like seeds in rich soil. You got used to seeing them, the way Dan tilts his head when he's confused, the way Levi still scratches his beard when he lies, even Reuben pacing outside during hard decisions, pretending he isn't pacing. You forgave them, truly. But some days, you still feel the echo of that pit when you close your eyes, because forgiveness doesn't erase memory, it just lets you carry it differently. Fringe scholars once speculated that Joseph might have suffered from what modern thinkers now call narrative dissonance, that subtle inner ache when your story doesn't match your expectation, even if the ending's good. You understand that. You lived it. Because nothing turned out the way you imagined. And yet, it's beautiful. Not because it was painless, but because it meant something. You once dreamed of power, now you dream of peace. You once longed to be recognized, now you're grateful to be known. And in the middle of all of that, you laugh. Not often, but when it happens, it's real. Usually at dinner. When Ephraim knocks over his lentils trying to show off. Or when Manasseh starts mimicking Pharaoh's walk with terrifying accuracy. Or when Benjamin says something absurd and looks proud of it. The kind of moments that don't get recorded on tablets, but are etched into memory with more permanence than stone. And still, through it all, you wonder. Not about whether the dreams were true, but about why they came so early. Why you saw what you saw before you were ready to carry it. You may never know, but maybe that's part of the dream too. The waiting, the wondering, the long pause between promise and purpose, like grain planted in a season of drought, not knowing if rain will come, but still planted. Because some truths, they take time. They need pits and palaces. They need loss. And then, at the right moment, they rise. You've learned the rhythms of Egypt now. The way the Nile breathes. The way the markets sing in the morning and sigh in the heat of afternoon. The way Pharaoh's court bends like reeds in the current. Never breaking, always swaying, always watching. You walk through those stone corridors like you were born to them. But you weren't. And every so often, something reminds you. A child playing with a goat's horn. A flash of sheep wool caught on a fence post. A brother's laugh, too sharp and familiar. And just like that, you're back under a fig tree in Canaan, holding a piece of bread too big for your hand and dreaming bigger than your body could carry. You were just a boy. and the world was already whispering to you. Sometimes you still wonder what it meant, that first dream. The sheaves in the field bowing to yours. Because now that you've lived it, you're not sure it was about dominance at all. Maybe it was about provision. Maybe the dream wasn't saying, you'll rule them. Maybe it was saying you'll feed them. Mainstream scholars now lean to that interpretation, that the dream was agricultural from the beginning, not metaphorical monarchy, but literal survival. That Joseph's true destiny wasn't about rising, it was about sustaining. And that's exactly what you've done. You've built systems, fed nations, turned drought into order. You've saved lives, including your brothers. But the deeper miracle? You haven't let it harden you. You could have. The pit could have made you bitter. The prison could have made you cynical. But somewhere along the way, you bent instead of broke. And it shows in how you treat your staff, in how you speak to the tired woman at the granary gate, in how you teach your sons not just your language, but your story. Because stories matter, not just the glossy parts, but the messy, confusing, unfair parts. Like the part where your robe got stolen and soaked in goat blood and used to fake your funeral. Like the part where you were forgotten for 2 years by a man who owed you a favor. Like the part where your family bowed down and you wished they didn't have to. You tell those parts too, because your boys need to know. Greatness doesn't come clean. It comes through dirt and fear and being the person who keeps showing up long after hope has stopped sending emails. They love those stories, especially Benjamin, who now visits often. He's still gentle, still steady, but there's a gravity to him now, like he carries the weight of your shared history on his shoulders, even though he was too young to remember the pit. He remembers your father, though. Talks about his laugh, the way he always smelled like earth and wool, the way he told your story like a fable, but paused on the sad parts a little longer. And when you and Benjamin sit together, sharing figs, watching the Nile, you sometimes catch him studying your face, like he's still not sure how you survived it all. You tell him the truth. I didn't. Not all of me. Some parts stayed behind. Some parts were peeled off in stages, by the brothers, by the dungeon, by the dreams themselves. But what was left? That part got stronger and more real, because sometimes the version of you that emerges from the pit is the version that was always meant to live. You lean your head back. The sun is low. The river glitters like it knows a secret. You remember that first robe, how it swished when you walked, how it caught the light, how it made you feel seen, and how quickly it made you feel targeted. Now, you wear simple linen. You don't need to be seen like that anymore, because the dream fulfilled itself. Not with parades, not with applause, but with survival, with reunion, with something that feels a lot like peace. There are mornings now when you rise before the sun, not for work, not for meetings with Pharaoh or grain tallies or policy scrolls, just to breathe, just to watch. You step out into the garden behind your home, lush, carefully maintained, a mix of Egyptian symmetry and Hebrew memory. Date palms rustle softly, papyrus sways along the water channel. Somewhere a heron picks its way through lotus blooms like a snooty priest late for temple. You sit on a low stone bench, close your eyes, and let the air fill your lungs the way dreams used to fill your head. It's quiet, but never empty, because you've started hearing the world differently, not in divine whispers or symbolic riddles, just in rhythms. The steady breath of your household waking up, the slow stretch of time folding itself across the land. And beneath all that, the question you once obsessed over finally softens. Why you? You used to ask it like a complaint. Now you ask it like a prayer. Why were you the one with the dreams? Why were you chosen to carry something so heavy so young? Scholars love to examine this question. Some say your story is a morality tale, the dangers of pride, the rewards of humility. Others call it divine orchestration, a lesson in providence, where God uses betrayal as a ladder. Fringe thinkers even propose you were a prototype, an early model of messianic foreshadowing. The rejected son, falsely accused, exalted among Gentiles, who ends up saving his people. You don't argue with any of it. You just remember what it felt like to be in the pit, to be in the palace, and to realize neither was the point. The point was the journey, not just where it led, but what it shaped. Because the truth, you were never just a dreamer. You were a vessel, a hinge in the story. Something had to pass through you. Blessing, survival, forgiveness. And now that it has, you feel lighter. Not empty, just clarified. Even Pharaoh seems to notice. He treats you differently now. Less like a novelty, more like a peer. Occasionally, he consults you on matters outside grain. Warfare, borders, astrology even. You listen politely, but you never forget. Your wisdom didn't come from stars or scrolls. It came from pits and prisons, from listening to silence until it turned into something sacred. The priests don't like that answer, but your staff understands. They've seen you weep behind your office curtain. They've watched you break bread with men who once tried to erase you. They know what mercy looks like in linen. Your sons know it too. Ephraim and Manasseh, names that carry memory like blood. God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. God has made me forget my pain. Sort of. You still remember, but differently now. The pain isn't raw anymore. It's archived. It no longer dictates your decisions. It just hums beneath them, like a song you once loved that now makes you smile instead of ache. And sometimes, just sometimes, you hear other people's dreams. Not to interpret them, just to honor them. A servant describes a vision of birds circling a fig tree. A scribe dreams of ink flowing into a river. You listen, you nod, you tell them, maybe it's not about meaning, maybe it's about movement. Dreams pull us forward, even when we're not sure where we're going. That's what yours did. Dragged you through betrayal, injustice, misunderstanding, and still, somehow, they led to redemption. You look up, the sun has risen. Not dramatically, just enough to turn the stone under your feet gold. You stretch your back, feel the weight of years in your bones and the lightness of grace in your chest. It's a good morning. Not perfect, but enough. And that's the kind of dream that no famine can touch. There's a moment you never saw coming, not in any dream, not in any scroll, not even in the pit when you were imagining how much worse things could get. It happens on a humid morning, somewhere between the barley records and a quiet conversation with Benjamin about goats. You're interrupted by a messenger, small, nervous, dressed like they ran across half the city just to get to you. There's someone asking for an audience, they say. You nod, routine. But then they add, he says he's from Shechem. You freeze, not because Shechem is dangerous, because Shechem is home. You excuse yourself gently, fix your robe. Check your expression in a polished bronze panel, smoothing down a face that's older than the one they remember. And then, you step into the hall, and there he is, Judah. Same stance, same eyes, a little grayer, a little smaller somehow. You don't speak right away, neither does he. There's a stretch of silence where both of you are 11 brothers in one pit again. Then he says, I've brought news. You nod slowly. He takes a breath. It's about the famine. It's deepening, spreading. You already know that. Your messengers have told you. But you let him speak. We need more grain. And Pharaoh has requested trade agreements. I've been sent to discuss terms. You blink once. The politics of it are simple, but what you feel isn't. He's not here for bread. He's here to show you something. That he's changed. That he can stand in front of the boy he once sold and not flinch. You invite him to sit. He does. He doesn't apologize, not directly. But his tone is humble. His hands fidget with the hem of his cloak. You offer him dates. He accepts. And for the next hour you talk like administrators. But beneath every phrase is another sentence unsaid. I'm sorry, I forgive you. We survived. That evening you walk the perimeter of your estate slowly. watching shadows stretch across the walls, watching stars appear like crumbs from a celestial loaf. And you think again of your dreams, how none of them included moments like this. Quiet reconciliations wrapped in protocol. Historians love the big gestures, the reveal, the bowing, the golden chariot moments. But you've come to respect the quiet stuff, like offering figs to someone who once left you for dead, or trusting that your story didn't stall out in the pit but grew there. That's the miracle nobody claps for. The long, dull healing, the kind that takes years and doesn't photograph well. You lie down on a rooftop mat, stare up. The stars are still there, still bowing, but you no longer need them to. You don't need signs to prove your worth. You're past that. Now, you just want to live kindly, to lead without ego, to let others dream. That's your real legacy, not the robes, not the title, but the way you walked back toward the brothers who broke you and chose not to break them in return. The word legacy starts to show up more often. Not out loud. No one says it, but you feel it circling in the background, like a servant who's always nearby but never makes eye contact. Legacy. It hums behind every family dinner, every quiet moment with your sons, every time someone says, "Tell me again about the famine years." You used to think legacy meant power. Now you think it means memory. What people remember when the titles fade, what they whisper about you when you're no longer in the room, or no longer in the world. You spend more time now teaching than ruling. You let others handle the reports, the logistics, the granary requests. You focus on stories. You sit with Ephraim and Manasseh beneath a tamarisk tree, flicking pebbles into the water and telling them about sheep tents and a coat that really wasn't your idea. They laugh. You do too. Then you tell them about the dreams, not just the ones with stars, the ones where your voice got lost in a prison cell, the ones where you begged God for direction and got silence instead. They ask if it was scary, you nod and say, but not forever, because that's the part worth passing on. That dreams don't protect you from pain, they just give the pain a purpose. And pain with a purpose? That's survivable. They ask about Egypt, why you stayed, why you helped, why you didn't punish your brothers when you had the chance. You pause. Think about how easy it would have been to demand repayment, to make them bow. But then, you remember Judah's voice trembling, Benjamin's eyes wide, Reuben's face pale. And you tell your sons, because I needed to become someone who wouldn't. That quiets them, because they know you could have, and that's what makes it holy. You teach them Hebrew, not just the words, but the rhythm, the inflection, the stories tucked inside syllables. They speak Egyptian with their friends. But with you, they speak your mother's tongue, and it matters, even if no one else hears it, even if the pharaohs forget, even if history moves on with louder stories, because you remember, and you remind them. You are sons of a dreamer, you say. But more than that, you are keepers of the promise that began in Abraham's tent, that wove through Isaac's quiet loyalty and Jacob's complicated blessing, that wore your coat, that walked your path, that rested in your bones, and will one day rise with your people. That promise? It lives in them now. They don't understand it fully yet, but someday, when the tide turns and the current shifts and the world presses in again, they'll remember, and they'll carry it forward, because that's what dreamers do. They pass on what they couldn't finish. You feel it coming before anyone says it aloud. The way your bones creak, the way your breath shortens after each hill, the way even simple tasks take longer, as if time itself is gently reminding you, you're not here forever. And that's okay. You've made peace with endings, because yours is not a story that needs fanfare. Not anymore. You've already had the dreams, the robes, the prisons, the parades. Now, all you want is stillness, to be remembered rightly, to leave well. One evening, Ephraim finds you dozing beside a fire pit, shawl tucked around your shoulders. He thinks you're asleep. He kneels quietly and adjusts the blanket. But you open your eyes and smile. "Tell me a story," he says. You raise an eyebrow. "I thought you were supposed to be the listener," he shrugs. "Just one more." So you begin. With the dreams, with the sheaves, with the stars. But you don't tell it like a child's fable. You tell it the way it happened. You talk about fear, about failure, about how the first robe wasn't protection, it was invitation. About how being chosen doesn't feel like winning, it feels like weight. He listens, wide-eyed. You see the firelight in his face and think, this is what legacy looks like. Not carved in stone, not wrapped in silk, but whispered across firelight into the ears of someone who might just carry it further than you ever could. When you finish, he doesn't speak. He just reaches over and takes your hand. And that's enough. Later, as you sit alone with the stars, those old, loyal witnesses, you breathe deeply, slowly. The night air is gentle, your thoughts quieter than they've ever been. You remember the last thing your father said before he died. "Now let me go, for I have seen your face and know you're alive." You think about how many people never get that moment. But you did. You got to be found, got to find, got to forgive. And you realize the end of a dream is not its death, it's its fulfillment. Even when it looks different than expected, even when it takes longer than you hoped. You place a palm over your heart. Feel it beat, steady and stubborn. Then you whisper, more to yourself than anyone else. "I was not the story's hero. I was just the hinge." And you smile. Because hinges are small, but they hold the door open. And yours stayed open long enough for reconciliation, redemption, and rest to walk through. You lie back, the stars soft overhead, and slowly, gently, you close your eyes. And now, as the last flickers of fire die down and the stars settle overhead like silent promises, you find yourself exactly where you need to be, resting. The story is finished, but the peace it leaves behind still lingers in the air like sweet incense. The garden has quieted. The night breeze stirs the edges of your robe, and the hush of Goshen is complete. Even the camels seem to sleep. The world is paused, perfectly, for one long, deep breath. You've carried so much, more than a coat, more than a dream, more than even your brothers could have imagined when they watched you vanish behind a hill of jealousy and dust. And yet, you carried it well. Not without stumbles, not without confusion, but faithfully. You reached the other side of the dream, not because you sprinted, but because you endured. And now? Now you can let go. Let the stillness wrap around you like that old robe once did, tattered but meaningful. Let the journey dissolve into memory, warm and gentle. Let the peace settle in your chest like a promise fulfilled. You don't need answers now. Just rest. Let your body soften into the earth beneath you. Let your breath grow long and slow. Let the stars keep watch a little longer. No more dreams tonight, no more pits or palaces or famine plans, only this breath, only this moment, only this gentle, sacred end. You're safe, you're held, you're home. Sweet dreams.